Hey, it's Oska from the Frontrunner Colombo.
And Tom from the Frontrunner Colombo.
And you are listening to Soulmates, the part of our Spotify and YouTube channels where Tom and I pick two shoes, pit them up against each other in the hope that maybe you'll listen to us and you'll think that we know a little bit of something about shoes.
Well, if you listen to our podcast, it probably wouldn't get much about shoes on there. So, yeah, this is where we come to nerd out and try to do the thinking so you guys don't have to.
I like that, Tom. I might add that into the byline. Actually, I'm going to make that part of my LinkedIn profile pic. Anyway, what shoes have we got, big guy?
We have today with us the On Cloudboom Vault
and
the Nike Zoom Fly 6. Two reasonably new shoes. If you did pop along to our run evening with On last week, two weeks ago, you might have been lucky enough to try on the Vault. There was a few demo pairs there floating around. And then the Nike Zoom Fly 6 has arrived in store in limited numbers, but it's on the shelf as of last week. So two fairly new additions to the shop, and two models that we seem to think compare to each other, although the brands might argue to...
Well, I'm here to create some arguments.
To disagree.
We know that.
Yeah.
Can you just fact check me slightly? That Zoom Flakes, that's race legal, isn't it?
Ooh.
We might have to do some fact checking in the background here. I'm going to go out and say it is. I'm pretty sure it is. I'm pretty sure it is.
I want to say 40 mil, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it is. So here's what I like about these two shoes straight off the bat. They're trainer races that are race legal.
Yeah.
So in that category, there's very few of them where they come in and under that 40 mil.
Yeah.
Heel in the stack. So we like Mark X3, which we talked about last week.
Yeah.
Super Blast, Mega Blast, Hyper Boost Edge.
They're all illegal.
All of those shoes are illegal if you are triathlon or you are age group. And we had the same conversation with a lady who was going to the 24-hour running world championships, and she couldn't wear her Cliftons.
Yeah.
Well, anyway. So these two shoes, slightly more flexible plates, but race legal.
Yeah.
So we'll fact check there, but I'm fairly certain.
Yeah.
So anyway, talk us through. Should we start with the On, because we've had that the longest?
Yeah, so with the On, we're looking at 210 grams, 5 mil drop. Still has their Helion HF Hyperfoam all the way through, so 2 layers slabbed together.
Which is their paper-based top material.
Yeah, between the carbon-infused plate. And
so let's not skip over that.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what carbon-infused plate means, because there's a lot of words that brands like to use to confuse you, so I think you just end up numbing out.
Yeah. So, a lot of the times these trainer races will have a composite, what they call a composite plate, and that allows it to bend, as Oscar's just shown, if you're watching, a little bit easier than their top line racing ones, which are normally full carbon. And a good way Logan, the On rep, described it was it's a PBX plate with carbon sprinkled into it.
A little bit like chocolate-coated almonds.
Yeah. Yeah, and that just helps stiffen the plate up and make it a little bit more rigid and responsive, but not to the point where it's really, really rigid and it won't move unless you exert the amount of pressure that you're supposed to when you're racing. So it's a little more gentle on your legs, which accommodates for a wider variety of paces.
And I think paces and it feels good it'll feel okay to land a little bit further back in the shoe, a little bit further forward in the shoe, whereas in those really stiff racing shoes, like the top stuff, anytime you hit the heel in most of them, it feels
jarring.
When you're running at those kind of slower, often in between reps, if we're using them for that. So key things I think people should know about this On shoe, it's quite a narrow base.
Yep.
So it's not the most stable shoe in the world, so you'd probably want to be fairly neutral. It is quite skinny through the midfoot, so you don't want an arch that hangs over the inside of a shoe. However, the volume and the shape of the top is not bad. Like I found it to be quite comfortable.
It's good shape enough. Like it fits a lot of people's foot, and I think because it's slightly wider in the forefoot, if you are running a little bit quicker, it is going to feel fine. But they have also enhanced the rocker, which again makes it, I guess, a little bit more viable for more people because it's getting you off the ground a little bit quicker. So if you do feel like you pronate or supinate a little bit, that rocker is going to help throw you off the front and be slightly more efficient.
So On wanted us to kind of sell this as a cheaper racing shoe.
Yeah.
It definitely could be a cheaper racing shoe.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to put this in the slightly better trainer racer category rather than into the not good racing category.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I
think that's probably where it should sit, and they'll get their messaging right. But
yeah.
I know for myself, I've run nearly 100K with the workouts in it, some hour-long steady state runs, some intervals and stuff. Like it's perfect for that.
Yeah.
Where you just want a little bit more versatility and pace and effort. You don't want that super aggressive, because I've had that high-end hamstring issue where the really like shoes that really lever me up off the ground and just annoy it.
Yeah.
And so this I'm in a bit more control
of
the forefoot and of the pace. So I think it's a really good step in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, there honestly needs to be a few more options in this kind of, what would you say, market or category?
Yeah.
Because it's where most of the public will sit. I think the high end ones are obviously designed with high end runners, and they're designed for that kind of foot strike, which we see and hear weekly. It doesn't work for some people.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they create these ones for the majority, which is really, really handy. Not to categorize people into these ones, but they do tend to work better and beat you up a little bit less, but you still get that fun, responsive ride. So with the Nike as well, we are looking at a little bit heavier, 214 grams for a women's size 8. I think that's due to probably the cushioning in the heel, the rear of the shoe.
And it's wider in the midfoot. So there's a couple of things I like about this one in terms of just geometry. And we know that if we're going to use this in this kind of trainer racer category, so we might be using it for, 50% of max effort all the way up to sort of 10% of max effort.
Yeah.
Oh, 90% of max effort. That is going to change our foot strike patterns and where we're landing and hitting the shoe. So we need protection and shoe to fall into when we're moving at slower paces, because we tend to have more ground contact time. So I would far rather give up 10 grams more for stability and through the midfoot than not have it there at all.
Mm-hmm.
It can make the shoe feel a little bit clunky in that stance phase as you kind of climb up out of it, because there's obviously going to be more there. But as you get tired in those workouts, especially getting those dog days of marathon training where you're just, weeks 5 to 11, you're just fucked.
Yeah.
This will look after you when you're a bit tired. So full ZoomX.
Yep.
That's Nike. So it doesn't feel the same as the Vaporfly. So it's just like a different compound, I guess, of ZoomX, but it's still their high grade foam.
Yeah.
And a fly plate, flexible fly plate. They're saying it's full carbon, but I don't think so. I think it's probably more like the On, and it's that composite kind of material.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah. It is going to move more with your foot than their top end stuff. And that's what they've designed it for. The waffle outsole is great. That traction is really good. It's going to look after you in a lot of different conditions. And then having some on the heel too is, again, speaking to the stability of the model. But super comfortable. It is shallow.
I agree.
In the toe.
Yeah, it's like wide base, shallow upper.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah. The upper looks like it's been cinched on compared to the On. There's a generous fit and a lot of volume in that one. So if you do find you rub the top of your toes or have pressure on top of your foot, the On might be the better option. But if you have a nice slim foot and you want something with a little bit more support, then the Nike's going to look after you extremely well there.
The other thing about the Nikes, it's crazy, is at $290.
Yeah.
New Zealand dollars. That's mental for
what you're getting in that shoe.
A Pebax based midsole material, a more flexible fly plate, and an outsole, which, like you said, will do some gravel, and the road and the wet road. It's particularly, I think, for New Zealand, where we often, mid-April through to mid-September, it tends to be a little shit out, and a lot of tree coverage. So you do end up, getting that kind of slippery concrete surface or tar seal surface that we do run on. So, you're right about the fit of the upper. So it's one of those ones where if you don't like the shoe touching the top of your foot, I think you're probably not going to enjoy that. The On retailing at $350, $340.
Yes,
$340. So that's more than feasible. I'm fine with that. It's only $10, $20 dearer than Speed 5, and you're getting a lighter, probably more responsive package. the Endorphin Speed 5 from Saucony probably tends itself a little bit more to the training.
Yeah.
The training bit, you can probably do a bit more in it.
Do more slower stuff in it.
Yeah, where this one I don't think would feel very good for much more than like the gaps between intervals.
Yeah.
I did warm up in it in a few, like for a few of my steady state runs. I wouldn't recommend it.
It wants to go fast.
Yeah. Whereas I think the Nike with the shape of the outsole, the midsole, will probably tend itself to warm up, warm down as well. If you just, because let's face it, sometimes it's nice not to have to muck around changing your shoes after a warm up and getting into the
agreed
to the session. Anything else you want to add there, mate?
No, I think the two very viable options for the category they sit in. Obviously, if you're looking for a little bit more support, maybe you'd lean to the Nike, but something with a little bit more roll and rocker, the On's definitely going to look after you there. And again, just try them on. Like, they fit differently, even though they are in the same category and designed for probably the same or similar outcome, they do fit and feel quite different. So this is why we compare them.
Absolutely. So if you guys would like us to compare any other of your favorite shoes, or you've got some questions about some of the new releases coming out, you can flick us an email or a comment or whatever, and we'll do our best to be organised enough to have an episode out on a Monday.
Sure.